One of the things that can be difficult when you're first working with algebra is that we use different notation in algebra. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about what I mean by that and show you a little bit about the notation. Even the word notation might be unfamiliar to you, and really all that means is the way we write things. So just something as simple as writing the number 5 counts as notation. The plus sign is another notation. You didn't know what that meant when you were a really little kid, and then someone taught you what that meant, and so that's a piece of notation that you've probably known for a long time. Now that you've started working in algebra, you know that you can see letters being used to stand in for numbers. So when you see the letter P, you know in algebra that that can be standing in for a number. So that's another piece of notation. In algebra, the notation for plus looks just like it does in any other kind of math, so you won't have to change the way you look at that. So this is P plus 4 equals 12, and looks just like you'd expect it to. The same is true for subtraction. We use the same symbol as we normally would, so this is x minus 6 equals 13. Multiplication is one of the places where you're going to see different notation in algebra. And here's why you're going to see a different notation for multiplication in algebra. Let's say we wanted to express x times 3 equals 12. If we use the old notation that you're used to for multiplication, this is what x times 3 equals 12 would look like, and you can see how that would be kind of confusing if we wrote it that way. So this is why we had to switch to a different notation for multiplication. Once you start working in algebra, no more using x to mean multiplication. One way you'll see us show multiplication in algebra is with this dot between two things, between either a variable or letter and a number, or between two numbers. So this means x times 3 equals 12. The more common way you'll see multiplication expressed in algebra when the multiplication is between a number and a letter is like this. So you'll see the number sitting in front of the letter with nothing in between. And when you see that, when that number is sitting right next to the letter with no symbol in between, that means 3 times that letter. So this is 3 times the letter x. And remember, x stands for some number in this case. So this means 3 times x equals 12. When you have two numbers that are being multiplied together and you're using algebra notation, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can imagine it won't work to do what we did in the previous slide. We can't just put the two numbers together, because if I want to say 6 times 7 and I were to just put the two numbers together with nothing in between, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between 6 times 7 and the number 67. So when we're working with numbers, we can't use that technique of putting two things right next to each other. So this is one way of doing it. You can put the dot in between, and this is 6 times 7. Another way to show multiplication of two numbers in algebra is like this. You put one of the numbers in parentheses, and then you can put the other number right next to the parentheses with no symbol in between. So if you have one of the numbers in parentheses, the other number is right next to it with no symbol in between, that means those numbers are being multiplied. You could see it with both numbers being in parentheses, but typically that's not the way it's written. It's written like this, with one number in parentheses and one number isn't, with no symbol in between. So this is 6 times 7. Division is another symbol that will be different in algebra, so this is the way you're used to seeing division. And this is the way you'll see it in algebra. So we write it as 18 over 3. I realize that may look like a fraction to you, and it is a fraction. We won't get into the details of that, but you'll need to get used to seeing this way of writing division in algebra. And this is what it looks like when there's a variable involved. So this is h divided by 3, or sometimes we say at h over 3. Here are 3 practice problems for you to try. So pause the video and write the answers to these using algebra notation, and then start the video up again to see the answers when you're finished. And here are the answers. If you need to look at these for a minute, you might pause the video here. This is the end of the video.